welcome to another episode of How to Be a Great Player. I'm answering a question today, and the question comes from Michael Battalion. I hope I pronounced that correctly, and if I didn't, well, Michael Battalion, I just like saying your name like that. Deal with it. Your question was, do you stay in character or do you change your character to fit with the story? It's quite a complicated question, because if you are a serious role player and you want to stay in character and your character is definitely against the actions that the party is about to take, and you know that that's part of the story perhaps, or you suspect it's part of the story, what do you do? Do you stay true to your character and murder your party because they've now committed a heinous crime and you are a champion of justice? Do you phone in to the local cops and say, hey, there's this group of people planning a bank robbery because it's just against your nature? Or if you are playing an evil character, do you slaughter them all just because you can? Or, if you're a good character and someone wants to commit an evil crime, do you turn a blind eye because that's kind of where the story's going? It's a toughie. And in my opinion, and I'm fairly certain you know what it is, if it's going to change the story in a negative way, you should look at how to change that. However, I want to look at the perspective of you want to stay in character. So what can you do when faced with a character versus story dilemma? The first question I would ask is, what's your goal as a player? Is your goal to have fun? Or is your goal to have collective fun? So if your goal is to have fun, then you should stay true to your character. You've created that character because you want to explore that character and you want to explore the consequences of their decision-making process. This means that when you're in conflict with the rest of the party or the main story, you continue that conflict and you explore it to its bitter, miserable end. This is fine if you're playing with other players who are understanding of your character's background and who realize that you're not just being difficult or stubborn or obnoxious or just trying to drive the story in a different direction. You are playing out your character. Now, this would be the ultimate in role-playing, where everybody understands that everyone is just trying to remain true to their character, and so they'll battle it out in character to determine what the party then does next. Unfortunately, it doesn't always work out like that. And in my own experience, I've had a player who's joined my table, and after session 2, the rest of the players were saying, please do not invite him back. He's absolutely horrid. He's abrupt, he's nasty, he goes against the party at every turn. Please don't let him come back. After 6 weeks, I would now count him as one of the greatest role players that I've ever had the privilege of playing with, simply because his character was gruff and brusque and really had no manners. And he was simply playing out his character. Unfortunately for him, he wasn't reading the rest of his player group, and so he didn't pick up that although he was having fun playing this gruff, dour dwarf, the rest of the party, the players, were actually not having fun. So if you feel that you have read your player base correctly and that they will enjoy the conflict that may arise out of you sticking to character rather than sticking to story, then go for it. But try and read your fellow players. If they're getting irritated with the fact that every single time you argue against them, you might need to look at your strategy a little bit differently. So one of the other things that you can do is that you can look and see, does your decision to follow your character promise a bigger and a more entertaining story? Or does it kind of terminate story? If it promises a bigger and better story or a more entertaining story, well, then by all means pursue it. We're trying to tell stories here after all. But if it's simply going to terminate the story, well, that's not necessarily the right way to go. And then perhaps you should look at an alternative question, which is going to come up later. But let me give you an example. If you look at The A-Team, a classic from the 80s TV series and a remake movie, which was quite entertaining, there was a character, B.A. Baracus, who refused to fly. He hated flying. So when the party decided, hey, we're going to fly wherever, he immediately said, I ain't getting in no plane, I ain't flying nowhere. So the party then knocked him out. As a player, when he came to, when he awoke on the plane, the player had two choices in mind. Either they could react how you would react if your friends knocked you unconscious and threw you on a plane, taking you somewhere where you didn't want to go, which would be with violence. You might hit back at them, and so often I see players doing this. They go, oh, well, my character's going to be angry, so I hit the nearest thing next to me because I'm angry because you did something against me. That's not necessarily pushing the story forward. Instead, what he does is that he gets all frustrated that he got put onto a plane, but he accepts it. And he goes along with the mission. That, to me, is a very smart way of staying true to character. He gets grumpy and he's like, well, you didn't need to knock me out. You could have just convinced me type of thing, although I would have whatever the case might be. So instead of following the urge to just hit people because he's angry, he goes in the I'm accepting, we're on the plane, it's fine, or he freaks out like a little girl, which is entertaining, but which doesn't stop the story. So that is another question you should be asking. Is there another angle that you can look at rather than just going with your first impulse of how your character is going to react to a situation? So that angle of he wakes up angry because he was knocked out by his fellow characters. Well, what if he wakes up slightly embarrassed that he realizes they had to knock me out to get me on the plane? It was part of the mission. I had to kind of go along with it. What if that's his reaction? So look at it from a different angle and you might find better story options. Then finally, something to think about. There is nothing wrong with you presenting your character's concerns or beliefs vehemently to the party. And instead of just drawing a line in the sand saying, I have decided that I will not fly, or I have decided we will not kill that innocent woman, say, I really don't want us to kill that woman. Why do you think we should kill that woman? What's your thinking? And don't be stubborn. Don't try and win the conversation. Try and win the story. So listen to their arguments and think, would your character accept it? And even if he wouldn't accept it, is their argument enough that he might say, well, I'm going to stand outside. I'm not going to participate in this torture. Then he goes and stands outside, but keeps watch. So look at it and see how you can make the decision, make a different decision, and see how you can work towards that. That is, in my opinion, the greatest way of overcoming character versus story. Don't change your character. Don't simply give up because the story is going in a different direction, but try and explore options that your character might realize in a moment of inspiration. Hey, I don't always have to punch my way out of a situation. Maybe I can actually talk. Of course, the humorous thing is if in the next encounter you do punch your way out because you realize it's not going to affect the story. So always look at it as to how you can keep the story going. And if you really are out of ideas, if you really can't see an angle to get your character out of the situation that they're in, simply chat to the GM. Hey GM, can we have a moment? My character really wants to do this, that, and the next thing. What can I do to keep the story going? Or what can you do to help me to keep the story going? Ask your GM. Together you can come up with a solution that might be even better than the GM had originally envisaged and that you had tried to find. I hope these have been helpful in how to resolve the character versus story or party conflict that seems to arise. And the best bottom line advice, look for a solution rather than declaring a stance. Look for a solution rather than declaring a stance. I am going to be rigid and inflexible. Rather say, how can I not be rigid and inflexible? And I guarantee you'll have a better time of it. Until next time, hit that like, hit that subscribe button, hit that share button if you have it. Or if not, simply just share us. You know what to do. Until then, happy playing.